Welcome to another deep dive. And this time, it's a topic you specifically requested. We're diving into the evolving role of tutors in modern education.
Oh, yeah, it's a fascinating one.
Yeah, and we've got kind of a mix of sources we're going to be pulling from. We've got articles, research reports. We even found a couple of firsthand accounts from experienced tutors and educators.
It's always good to get that firsthand perspective, right?
Exactly. And, well, we'll be exploring everything from the fundamental differences, between tutoring and teaching,
Yeah,
all the way to, the impact of AI, even the debate about whether tutors need formal teaching degrees. That's a big one.
definitely a hot topic these days.
Yeah. And just to kind of kick things off, did you know that over 2 million tutoring sessions have already been launched through the National Tutoring Program in the UK?
Wow, 2 million. That's pretty impressive. It
Mhm.
really shows the growing demand for this kind of personalized learning.
Yeah, tutoring seems to be, right at the forefront of that whole movement.
Makes you wonder why it took so long, right?
Yeah, right. So let's just start by defining some, key differences, right, between a tutor and a teacher.
Okay.
Because while they both have a role in education, obviously their approaches and impact on students can be quite distinct.
For sure.
What really stood out to you in the Explore Learning source?
Well, that one really emphasized the personalized nature of tutoring, right?
Uh.
Unlike a classroom where a teacher might have, 30 or more students?
Right.
Tutoring offers that individual attention, that tailored approach to learning.
Yeah.
And that can make all the difference. It means tutors can really hone in on those specific learning gaps, address misconceptions immediately as they come up and adapt their teaching methods to fit each student, their learning style, their pace.
Wow.
And it's that flexibility that can really help nurture what the source called fearless learners.
Fearless learning.
Yeah, students who feel confident in their abilities
Yeah.
and who are, eager to take on new challenges.
Okay, I like that. And, that resonates with some of the other sources we have, too. Several experts emphasize that tutoring fosters that sense of confidence,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Self-efficacy. But, wouldn't some students benefit from, the structure and routine of a traditional classroom?
Oh, for sure.
Right. Could this level of individualized attention be too much for some?
Yeah, you bring up a good point. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution, right?
Right.
Not every student thrives in that one-on-one setting. And there are definitely advantages to classroom learning.
Yeah.
The social interaction, the collaborative learning. It's about finding that balance, figuring out what works best for each student. Tutoring isn't about replacing traditional teaching.
Okay.
It's about enhancing and personalizing the learning experience.
Okay, so speaking of individual needs, there's been this ongoing debate. Do tutors need formal teaching qualifications?
Right, right.
And that YouTube video, do you need to be a qualified teacher to tutor?
Yes.
It presented a bunch of different perspectives on this issue.
Yeah. It was interesting to hear from both sides,
What were some of the key arguments, would you say?
Well, the folks with teaching degrees, they really emphasized their pedagogical knowledge.
So the science behind teaching.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Knowing how students learn, how to design effective instruction, curriculum development, assessment strategies, all the techniques you learn in teacher training.
Right.
They felt those were really essential for being an effective tutor.
But on the other hand, a lot of the experienced tutors, they emphasize their hands-on experience.
Yeah, the real-world experience.
Okay.
They argued that tutoring requires a slightly different skill set than classroom teaching. More focus on those individual needs,
Yeah.
building that rapport,
Yeah.
adapting on the fly.
Right. Being able to, think on your feet, adjust to the student's needs in the moment.
Exactly.
And then they even brought up this idea of the curse of the expert.
Oh, right. That was fascinating. The idea that, sometimes those highly qualified teachers, they might struggle to relate to those who are just starting out.
Yeah.
Because they're so far removed from those early challenges.
Right. They forget what it's like to not know.
Exactly. Yeah. And that can make it harder to break things down, to really meet the student where they are.
That makes me think about, when I've tried to explain something I'm really familiar with to somebody who's totally new to it.
Oh, yeah.
It can be surprisingly hard to, put it in simple terms,
Yeah, it's easy to forget what it was like to learn it for the first time.
Right, exactly. So, are we saying that experience is more important than qualifications when it comes to tutoring?
Well, I don't think it's about one being better than the other. Ideally, a tutor would have a combination of both.
Okay.
the solid foundation of those educational principles, and the practical skills that come with experience.
Yeah.
Maybe the answer lies in more professional development for tutors. Mentorship, opportunities to learn from those seasoned educators.
Yeah, finding ways to bridge that gap. All right, so let's move from theory to practice. The UK's National Tutoring Program.
The NTP.
It gives us a real-world example of tutoring in action. What can we learn from these Education Hub articles and those gov.uk reports, like in terms of its impact?
Well, the reports show some pretty positive results, actually, in terms of student attainment.
So like academic progress, test scores.
Exactly.
Okay.
There's also evidence that the program has boosted student confidence and motivation, which is huge. And these findings actually align with a lot of the research on tutoring in general.
But they also point out some serious challenges. What were some of those?
Yeah, some big hurdles, like consistent attendance, especially when the sessions are before or after school.
Right.
It can be hard for kids to get there.
Yeah.
Transportation, family commitments, life gets in the way. And of course, if they're not there consistently, the tutoring isn't as effective.
Right, right.
They also stress the importance of careful student selection, making sure those resources are going to those who need them most.
Makes sense.
And then, of course, that question of tutor qualifications comes up again.
Of course, it always comes back to that.
The big one, yeah.
So even with a well-funded program, there are these complexities, right?
Absolutely.
Making sure it's effective, reaching the right students. But let's zoom in on the individual level for a second. Yeah. Beyond, like, the structure of the programs themselves.
Okay.
What makes tutoring truly effective? One interesting concept from that YouTube video, High Challenge, Low Threat, is this idea of a learning environment that's both challenging and supportive.
Ah, yes. The high challenge, low threat approach. It's about finding that sweet spot, right?
Explain that a bit.
So high challenge means pushing students to reach their full potential, presenting material that's just beyond their grasp
Okay.
to stretch their abilities. But then low threat means creating a space where it's okay to make mistakes, where they don't feel judged.
So, like, they're not afraid to try.
Exactly. They're not afraid to take risks. And that's where the fearless learner comes in, right?
I see.
This environment allows them to make mistakes, to learn from them, and to grow.
And that makes me think about, like, if you ever felt more motivated to learn when you knew a teacher believed in you.
Oh, absolutely. It's incredibly powerful when someone sees your potential, even when you doubt yourself.
And that personal connection between a tutor and a student, that's where the real magic happens.
It's everything. That's where that emotional support comes in, that encouragement. It creates an environment where students feel safe to ask questions, to take risks, and ultimately to learn more deeply.
It's that safe space to really dive in. And that video gave this great example, remember? The study where weaker readers were given harder material.
Oh, yeah.
And they actually did better. It's like we underestimate what students can do sometimes.
It's a classic example of the self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Right.
If we set the bar low, students are likely to meet those low expectations.
So by creating this high-challenge, low-threat environment, we're basically saying, we believe you can do this.
Exactly.
They're setting higher expectations.
And students rise to the occasion. They discover hidden potential. They develop a growth mindset where challenges are seen as opportunities.
Okay, so how can we as learners, like, create that environment for ourselves?
Well, I think that's where self-directed learning comes in. It's about taking ownership of your learning, identifying those gaps, and finding those resources, mentors who can push you.
It's about becoming that fearless learner ourselves.
Exactly. Embracing those challenges and seeing mistakes as valuable feedback.
So it's bigger than just tutoring. It's a life skill.
It really is.
Now, let's look ahead. Tutoring and technology. These Linatati texty excerpts give us a glimpse into the future. AI-powered apps, personalized instruction.
It's pretty mind-blowing, the potential there.
What are some of the benefits and challenges?
Well, the benefits are huge, right? Imagine an app that's like having a personal tutor available 24/7. It can diagnose those misconceptions instantly, provide that tailored feedback, but, and this is a big but,
Yeah.
there's that concern about the human connection.
Okay.
Technology, no matter how advanced, can't fully replace that. Learning is about relationships, about feeling a sense of belonging, and developing those social and emotional skills. That's where human tutors shine.
Well, it's about finding that balance, right?
Exactly.
Leveraging technology, but not losing that human element.
The most effective models will probably involve a blend of both.
It's not one versus the other.
It's about using both strategically.
Okay, this has been fascinating. We've covered so much. from the basic differences between teachers and tutors to the impact of AI.
And then we've only just scratched the surface.
Right. And there's still so much more to explore.
In the next part of our deep dive, we'll look at the expanding role of tutors, their impact beyond academics, and we'll delve into some of the ethical considerations, especially with technology becoming more and more integrated into education.
This is getting really interesting.
It is, isn't it? It's really interesting as we go deeper into these sources. The role of a tutor, it's becoming so much more than just academics. It's almost like, I don't know, the lines are blurring between educator and mentor and almost like a confidant in some cases.
That's a good point. And a lot of the sources, like the Tutor Handbook and the role, responsibilities, and boundaries of a teacher, they emphasize that, tutors can have these deep relationships with students.
Especially if they're working with them over a longer period.
Yeah, exactly. And it impacts not just their grades, but like their personal growth, too.
It's that holistic approach. And the Pillars of Student Success video, that one really stood out to me. They had these powerful stories about how consistent, supportive tutoring can really boost a student's confidence, their self-esteem, their overall well-being.
It's like the tutor becomes this, trusted ally.
Yeah.
Someone who believes in them when they don't believe in themselves.
Exactly. But that raises the question, right?
Yeah.
How do tutors navigate those close relationships while still maintaining those professional boundaries?
That's a tough one. It seems like a really tricky balance.
It is, and it's something that's being talked about more and more as tutoring evolves. The sources we looked at, they offer some guidance, thankfully, like setting clear expectations right from the start,
Okay.
having open communication with the parents, and knowing when to seek support, from colleagues or supervisors when things get tough.
So it's not just about being good at the subject matter. It's about those people skills, too.
Oh, absolutely. You need empathy, communication skills, and really being able to connect with the student on a personal level. It's a unique blend of skills.
Yeah. And it seems like schools are recognizing that.
Yeah.
The top 5 tutor FAQs from Green's College, Oxford, they mention that their tutors have an average of 2.5 degrees.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
It's not just about being an expert in one area. It's about that broader intellectual curiosity, the passion for learning, and really wanting to help students succeed.
And that really resonated with what those tutors were saying in the Why We Must Always Be Learning as Tutors video. They talked about constantly learning, not just for their students, but for themselves, too.
Yeah. Learning is what makes us human. That really stuck with me.
It's powerful.
It's like saying that the best tutors, they never stop learning. They're always challenging themselves and, embracing that joy of discovery alongside their students.
And they even talked about learning from their students.
For sure.
Some of them shared stories about times when their students had challenged their thinking or introduced them to a new perspective. It's really a two-way street.
Yeah, it's a true partnership. Learning isn't this one-way transmission of knowledge. It's a dynamic exchange of ideas and experiences.
We've talked a lot about the individual impact, but what about tutoring's role in the bigger picture of education? Can it help address some of those systemic challenges? Improve outcomes for all students?
That's where things get really interesting. Some of the sources, like those independent review of tutoring in schools, reports from gov.uk, they raise some concerns about long-term sustainability.
Especially if funding dries up or the political will fades.
Exactly. They point out that while tutoring can be really effective, it's not a quick fix. It requires a lot of investment, careful planning, and constant evaluation to make sure it's working.
So it can't just be this, side project. It needs to be integrated into the system.
Yeah, woven into the fabric of education.
And that takes collaboration between tutors, teachers, and administrators.
Absolutely. The reports stress the need for clear communication, shared goals, and coordinated efforts. Everyone needs to be on the same page.
And they talked about training and support for tutors, especially those who work with students with special needs or who are facing big learning challenges.
Oh, for sure. Tutoring is a demanding job, and those tutors need access to professional development, resources, to help them stay on top of their game.
Investing in tutors is investing in students, right?
Exactly. It's about recognizing the value they bring. And it's not just about paying them fairly. It's about giving them the tools and support they need to succeed.
It seems like there's this growing understanding that tutoring can be a powerful tool for change, but there are still these logistical and financial hurdles. And probably the biggest challenge is changing how we think about tutoring.
Right. We need to stop seeing it as a remedial service and start seeing it as a way to personalize learning for every student.
It's about empowering all students, not just those who are struggling.
Absolutely. Every student deserves that chance to thrive.
Okay, so let's dive into some of the practical aspects. What makes a successful tutor? What did the duties and responsibilities of a tutor source highlight?
Well, they emphasize the importance of creating a positive learning environment,
Yeah.
setting clear expectations, using different teaching methods, providing feedback, and tracking progress. It's about being organized, being a good communicator, and really caring about helping students learn.
And as we've been saying, being able to adapt your approach to each student.
Oh, that's crucial. Some students need structure, some need more flexibility. It's about figuring out what works best for each individual.
So it's that blend of those hard skills and soft skills. Knowing your stuff, but also being empathetic and adaptable.
Exactly. And as technology changes things, the role of the tutor is going to keep evolving too.
We talked earlier about AI-powered tutoring. Those excerpts from Teddy Texty painted a pretty futuristic picture. Personalized learning, AI tutors.
Yeah, it's exciting to think about, but we have to be careful, right?
Right, the Pillars of Student Success video cautioned against embracing it too quickly. What are the things we need to be thinking about as we navigate this new world?
Well, on one hand, AI could totally change how we learn. Imagine having a tutor that can adapt to your learning style in real time. That's incredible. But we can't forget that learning is about more than just information. It's about those relationships, those human connections.
And those are things that AI can't replicate.
Not yet, anyway. So it's about finding that sweet spot, right?
Combining technology with human interaction?
It's not about AI versus humans. It's about using both strategically to create the best learning experience.
This idea of blended learning, it keeps coming up, and it fits with this shift we're seeing in education overall. It's not just about memorization anymore. It's about critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration.
And tutoring is becoming a key part of that. That article from AT Comment, Rise of Blended Learning and the Role of the Tutor, they had a great example of how tutoring is being used in those professional qualification programs. The flipped delivery model. Students work through online materials on their own, and then they meet with a tutor to really apply what they've learned.
So the tutor becomes more of a guide, facilitating discussions, providing feedback.
Exactly. It's a really interesting model, combining the best of both worlds.
Okay, wow. This deep dive has been so insightful. We've really unpacked the role of tutors in modern education.
From those basic differences between teachers and tutors to the potential of AI and the importance of that human connection.
And we've talked about the challenges too, like funding and integrating tutoring into the system. But one thing's for sure, tutoring has the potential to transform education.
It can empower students of all ages and backgrounds.
You know, one thing that's really struck me is just how passionate the tutors themselves are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it seems like so many of them see this as more than just a job. What did you think about those videos? What it really means to move from teaching to tutoring, and why we must always be learning as tutors?
Those were really powerful. I think they really gave us a glimpse into the heart of tutoring, you know?
Yeah.
The tutors talked about the impact they're having on their students' lives with such genuine enthusiasm. It's contagious. That feeling of seeing a student finally grasp a concept, the aha moment, you know?
Yeah.
We're helping them overcome a learning obstacle that's been holding them back. It's clearly so rewarding for them.
And several of them even talked about how moving from teaching to tutoring was liberating in a way.
Oh, interesting.
They felt like they had more freedom to personalize their approach without the constraints of a standardized curriculum or all the testing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Tutoring really allows you to tailor the learning experience to each individual student.
Yeah.
Mm.
Do you think tutoring offers educators more autonomy and flexibility?
I think there's definitely a strong case for that. I mean, that quote from What It Really Means to Move from Teaching to Tutoring, about rediscovering the magic of teaching without all the administrative burdens that really hit home.
Yeah, I remember that. So it's not just about teaching the material, it's about rekindling that love of learning.
Exactly. And empowering those students to become lifelong learners. Which brings us back to that idea of the tutor as a mentor, as a guide.
Right.
It's about nurturing the whole student, not just their academic progress. And I think that's something that really resonated with me throughout our exploration of these sources.
Yeah. It seems like tutoring can be a truly fulfilling career path for the right person.
Especially for those who love connecting with students and making a real difference in their lives.
And the field is only going to grow, right?
Right, especially with online learning platforms and personalized learning becoming more and more popular.
Yeah, so as technology changes the educational landscape, the role of the tutor is only going to become more important.
I completely agree. It's an exciting time to be involved in this field.
So thinking about the future of tutoring, do you see it becoming a more mainstream part of education, or will it always be more of a supplementary service?
That's a big question. And I think the Pillars of Student Success video made a strong argument for high-impact tutoring becoming a central strategy in education. They even presented research suggesting that tutoring can be more effective than things like reducing class sizes
Hmm.
or providing professional development for teachers.
Wow. Okay, that's a bold statement. So if it has that much potential, why isn't it already a standard part of education systems everywhere?
Well, as we've been discussing, there are still a lot of obstacles. Funding's a big one, obviously. Scaling these programs to reach all the students who could benefit would require a significant investment.
Right. And even if the funding was there, there's a whole challenge of integrating tutoring into the existing system.
Right, it can't just be this add-on. It has to be woven into the fabric of how we educate. And of course, there's the issue of quality control,
Yeah.
making sure that all tutoring programs are effective and meet certain standards. That means proper training for tutors, professional development opportunities, and rigorous evaluation to track progress and identify areas for improvement.
But maybe the biggest challenge is changing our perception of what tutoring is.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. It's not just for students who are struggling, it's for every student.
It's about personalizing learning, empowering every student to reach their full potential.
And that shift in thinking is essential if we want to see tutoring truly become a transformative force in education.
This deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening for me. It's clear that tutoring isn't just about academics, it's about human connection. It's about mentorship. And it's about empowering students to become lifelong learners.
It's been inspiring to see how tutoring is evolving and adapting to the changing needs of students. And I think the future of tutoring is brighter than ever.
To our listeners out there, we hope this deep dive has given you a new appreciation for the role tutors play in shaping the future of learning.
Whether you're a student, a parent, an educator, or just someone who's passionate about knowledge, we encourage you to explore the world of tutoring. Maybe you'll be inspired to find a tutor for yourself.
Or maybe you'll even consider becoming a tutor yourself.
After all, learning is what makes us human, and sharing that journey with others can be incredibly rewarding.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of tutoring.
And we'll see you next time for another insightful exploration of a topic that matters.